Developing countries struggle in this modern world, especially with violence, whether it's political or cultural turmoil or unrest in society due to the nature of a less developed environment. In this case, the Caribbean is a region significantly impacted by violence, and with the aid of modern armory, gun violence is rife in the Caribbean with high rates of gangs and criminals committing crimes. The majority of these crimes can be traced back to guns brought over from the United States, an indicator of the flawed gun laws in the US. This violence has led to humanitarian issues with the Caribbean that stem from economic and societal instability. The Caribbean is a region of Americas that consists of the Caribbean Sea, its islands, and the surrounding coast. The region is the southeast of Gulf of Mexico and North American mainland. Many countries within the Caribbean are struggling with development and violence. In particular, I will be discussing the situation of Jamaica. Firearms in America are often discussed as a domestic matter, but guns sold in the US are used in thousands of crimes internationally, particularly in surrounding countries and regions like the Caribbean. Between 2014 and 16, more than 50,000 guns recovered from criminal investigations in the Americas could be traced back to the US. The Associated Press indicates the hardship Jamaican authorities experience in monitoring gun importation. They recover fewer than 1,000 firearms a year, but of those whose origin can be traced, 80% come from the US. It was reported that roughly 33% of the world's homicides occur in Latin America and the Caribbean. An average of 40% of the Caribbean population identifies crime and security related issues as the main problem facing their country. Jamaica suffers one of the highest homicide rates in the world, being the most suspected country in the Caribbean. As of a 2017 report, the homicide rate was 55.7 people per 100,000, with firearms being involved in 73.3%. The Dominican Republic's homicide rate is significantly lower, at 11.7 people per 100,000, with firearm-related homicides often peaking above 1,000 throughout the 2010s. Haiti has similar firearm homicide rates to the Dominican Republic, with the majority being female homicides. These developing countries struggle to tackle gun violence. It was estimated in 2017 that Jamaicans held 246,000 firearms, both illicit and licit, with law enforcement and military having only just over 16,500. These statistics are an indicator of the imbalance and struggle for gun control that authorities face. Jamaica suffers being overrun by guns, with gangs being blamed for 90% of homicides. With an average of 40% of the Caribbean population identifying crime and security-related issues as the main problem facing the country, even above poverty, the economy, or inequality, it's evident how violence has impacted society above all other factors. It is hindering society from progressing and damaging touristic attraction to the region, causing widespread economic instability and societal fear. The dangers of loose gun laws in America and the vulnerability of surrounding countries isn't only a problem for the Americans, but for many surrounding countries. The ease of gun purchase in the US only makes the rest of the exportation process easier, especially in developing countries like the Caribbean that have lesser security and border control. The lack of proper security hinders gun monitoring efforts, making smuggling to a much easier crime. Guns smuggled to Jamaica generally originate from Florida due to the lax gun laws and the location and proximity to Jamaica. A significant aspect of controlling gun violence and trafficking is tracing them to where they originate from. The majority of Jamaican guns seized are submitted for tracing, with the majority being traced back to the US. The U.S. Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives find most of the seized weapons come from 3 Florida counties, all with large Jamaican populations. Efforts were made during the Obama administration in the late 2000s to squash firearm trafficking, with further security being implemented in Caribbean countries to tackle the issue. But, as previously mentioned, homicide rates in many Caribbean countries have been significantly higher in the last decade, which could be a reflection of the US producing more guns in recent years. Some obvious steps to combat gun violence and trafficking would include stricter laws surrounding background checks and purchasing guns at American firearm retailers, stronger border security in Caribbean countries and gun possession laws, and even more law enforcement to battle the gun violence. Another step would be to make gun violence and trafficking and straw purchasing federal crimes. Gun violence in the United States is a significant issue, especially with how the loose laws lead to gun trafficking into surrounding countries with lesser security and more significant economic and social problems. Using the Caribbean as a case study for gun violence is a textbook example of the security issues gun trafficking causes, especially in countries without the adequate ability to tackle the issue alone. Outlined by Center for American Progress, a number of high-profile law enforcement organizations support strengthening the federal law with respect to gun trafficking and straw purchasing, including the Major Cities Chiefs Association and the International Association of Chiefs of Police. A number of bills have been introduced, including the Gun Trafficking Prevention Act of 2017 and the Stop Illegal Trafficking in Firearms Act of 2017, although none have moved in committee or received a hearing. Tackling these issues of trafficking first will help stop the spread of guns and decrease violence.